Today we are going to be talking about recession and being resilient in a recession. Maybe we could start this off by talking a little bit about why recession is even a topic right now. Like what are the triggers that could cause a recession? Why did it all of a sudden pop up on us? And
we could talk about that forever.
we could, but there's been some.
Because we'll have our opinions.
Well, I think a lot
true.
of people are feeling it right now. You know, cost of living has been tough for some time. Just go to the gas pump and you can see that. But you know, there's been a little bit of a housing squeeze. Stock market's been a little unstable. I mean, there's just a lot of variables right now.
What was the first recession you?
I was in the 07, 08 housing crisis, which inevitably turned into...
We know you're a little older than that. Tell us about the internet tech. Let's talk about the tech bubble.
1908.
Well, the one that impacted me the most was the 07, 08 one. And I was in the mortgage industry at the time. And, you know, overnight it felt like it just came down and crashed. And people just... It was something you can ease into and, you know, maybe filter funds here to there and try to offset some things. It happened literally overnight. And, you know, one of the things I started looking at was, you know, where can I grab money from to save, you know, the house? And then ultimately doing my research, it just came down to just some of the things weren't able to be sustained. And you had to make some tough decisions. So I remember that clearly. I mean, it was like it was yesterday.
So what drove that recession?
Well, I mean, without getting into too much detail on the mortgage crisis, but
45 minutes.
Okay. as I recall it, they were taking loans and parsing them into pieces and selling them into different vehicles so people could invest into.
So
those.
The banks really drove that recession.
They really did. Yeah. Bad loans. I mean, they were doing stated income. There was just a lot of bad things that were going on in lending and
interest only.
IO.
Yeah. The arms.
The arms were
Did
there.
you ever have an arm loan?
No.
Have you?
No.
Me neither. I was too scared.
Yeah.
But
the balloon.
My first loan was on a home was in 2010. So I was scared for good reason.
Well,
I learned a lot.
You came in at a good time,
Yeah.
though. I mean, 2010 was a nice time to get back into the market after 07. The rates were down pretty good. Values were.
This always turns
adjusted.
into a podcast on how Rick's made the right choices.
Tell us about all your investments.
I completely lucked into that right choice. Rick's made the right choices. No, I eat out way too much, man. What are you talking about? That's a terrible choice.
He was waiting.
Yeah. So specifically, so we ended up, I did get married around that same time and my wife had a house. And so we ended up short selling that house. Mm-hmm. So that was like the big hit for us during that time. There was a lot of things going on. Like my career at the time was not great for it was not recession proof by any means because it was in the transportation industry, which is heavily dependent on consumer spending. And when consumer spending goes down, that's one of the first industries that goes down because there's not as much stuff to move around.
Right.
So it was definitely tough. It was definitely tough for me. But yeah, so our big hit, thankfully the worst thing that happened to us was we had to short sell a house. Had to live with my parents for a little while. We actually switched between my parents and my wife's parents because either they could only take so much of us or we could only take so much of them.
That was probably the hardest part.
It was tough.
Yeah.
We did that for a few months too. We did short sell our house.
Oh, same thing.
We short sold it to my aunt, which I know is not necessarily, I don't think that was completely legit to short sell to a family member.
Yeah, there was pretty specific. You weren't supposed to.
But we short sold to my aunt and then moved in with my parents for like 3 months until we found another spot.
Same for us. It was about 3 months. It was tough 3 months.
Yeah.
Probably tough for all my parents, but
Yeah.
What was the worst thing for you guys?
Well, I was looking at all my resources to try to save the house. I was kind of an early adopter on the whole 07, 08 crash because we were like one of the first. It was 07. My mortgage company shut down overnight. And I literally handed over a car, told them just come pick it up, and walked away from the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Big time.
It was big time. I looked at a variety of ways to save everything. Looking at my, I had a life insurance policy that I could draw from. And I looked at all these things and I said, you know what? We could do this for 3 years. We can just walk away. And in 3 years to the day, we were able to buy again. So we made some good decisions after the fact once we got over the hurdle of this is what we have to do. There's no other way around it. We couldn't, the forbearance stuff, all the different government programs they put in place kind of in '08 because it was getting so crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
We were before that. So we didn't really have a lot of options.
Yeah. And yeah, that was all very reactive. I think that there was a little too late on some of that, some of those
100%.
programs. Yeah, that was tough.
I mean, you saw entire neighborhoods turn. All of a sudden, they were empty.
I know.
people
Like
walked
you
away.
could tell the lawn was just awful because
Oh,
the water
yeah.
had been shut off. What about, did you stay in your house without paying the mortgage for a while?
I didn't.
Okay.
No. We walked away. We rented for 3 years, a couple different places. Had to again, we were kind of early into this, and people were like, what are your credit? And I'm like, well, here's what happened, So there was a lot of just, negotiating with people. Sometimes, putting a little extra down, there was means to do it, but we had to rent.
Yep.
But fortunately, making good decisions during that 3-year period, I knew I was going to be on my record for 7 years. It was just, that was going to be a fact.
Well, yeah.
Bankruptcy, foreclosure. But we did really smart things in that 3-year period to make sure that we were in a position to be able to buy again. And literally 3 years to the day, we bought our next home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And still in that one today.
Still in that one today. Yeah. So
That's great.
it does turn around. It's just really tough during that time. I mean, you almost forget how bad it was.
So you said the things that you did during that 3-year period, like that, I think that's kind of like what we want to hone in on. What did you do? How did you save money or put yourself back in a better financial position at the outset? Because I mean, right now it's not as tough as that yet. So,
No.
And I don't think it'll get there, but because I think we at least learned enough from '08 to where we're not going to get to that same bad spot.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily driven by the lending per se.
Right.
We have rising interest rates. We have other things that are happening right now that are kind of factors, but not like weird lending practices.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest thing that people are feeling right now is their pay is not keeping up with inflation.
Right.
Like nobody's is.
No.
And so that then everything is more expensive to a person trying to make their way through life. And so that's what hurts right now. But when you were in that spot, so a lot of people are in a smaller version of the spot that you were in back then. So like, what are the things that you did to like pull up your bootstraps and get back in the right spot?
Yeah, well, we had to get more than one income coming into the house, so that was a start, and that helped. But we looked to, lower our costs, cancel subscriptions, cancel things, that weren't necessary. Fortunately, the kids were still in the house, so they didn't have needs outside of rent or assistance. But I really looked to lower costs by where I rented. I was fortunate enough to find a job that was kind of worked with my industry and took it, but I had to commute to Orange County. Fortunately, gas prices weren't as high then, but I had to take certain steps that did cost me a little bit more, but I was making good money at the time. I would stay at my parents' house over in Orange County during that time while I was working there. We pulled everything back. We were living a pretty good lifestyle in the mortgage industry in 2006, 2007, and we were killing it.
Yeah.
And so handing over a car, we went down to one car. We rented, instead of a $2,800 mortgage or $33,000 mortgage, we went down and we're paying $1,750 a month for rent. We lived in a 2-bedroom with 2 kids, and they shared a room, during that period. So, it was not easy, and I don't think we did everything we possibly could to help ourselves. But I think we were fortunate too, like you. You bought in 2010. That was an idyllic time to purchase something. But I had enough connections, and I was able to stay active work-wise enough to get us to the next point. But we just saved. If I had to stay at my parents during the week, and Carrie was at home with the kids, and she was dealing with a job and dealing with them, getting them to school, we both just struggled a little bit, but it was worth it.
So in the 3 years after when you went to buy another house, did you have to put 20% down? because you had already had an FHA loan in the past.
I was able to get another FHA loan.
Yeah, that's a thing a lot of people don't know about.
Yes.
You can get an FHA loan more than once. You just can't have more than one at a time.
Right.
Yeah, so that's good. That's good.
Because
That's the
it
only
is
reason I was able to buy a home too.
They say it's a first-time homebuyer program. That's what makes people think that,
Yep.
that you can only get it one time. But yeah, we were able to do it. So,
Cool.
Yeah, it was really fortunate. But yeah, you're gonna struggle. You're gonna. One of the things I think is important, like maybe right now to get a little ahead of it, I started looking at like all the different, just like subscriptions we have to different media, and it was like, who watches Paramount?
Paramount?
Why do we have?
I knew you were going to say Paramount.
Yeah, why do we have Peacock?
Yellowstone is over.
You can watch it other places now. But I started looking at some of that stuff,
Yeah.
and it adds up.
Do you spend a lot on credit cards, or do you keep it to like debit cards and?
I keep them at 30% no matter what, even my kids' cards.
Even back then.
But you use a credit card.
I do.
You
I
use
do.
a credit card.
When we were going through the 3 years in between purchases, no, there was no credit. I think we had one through our credit union that we would just use for like gas and groceries and pay it off at the end of each month, just to help us reestablish some
to
level of
start
credit.
building.
The other thing too, though, once you go through a filing like that, you can get a car offer pretty fast. You can get credit card offers pretty fast. There's programs that the higher
Interest rates are relatively high.
really, really high. But
30% is a great
That's
one.
the other thing I did though was I had to reestablish.
Yeah.
So I did that, but I didn't go out and just start jacking up credit cards again.
Did you use credit cards during that time?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't use them a lot. We took a similar approach during that time. We did the short sale. We lived with my parents for about 3 months, and then got a rental. So we went from it's like a 2,800 square foot house with our 2 kids to living with my parents for 3 months till we could find a rental, and ended up in a rental that was like 1,000 square feet for 4 of us, and stayed there for like 2 years.
Okay.
Until we found another house to buy. But it was similar. Like we cut down on everything. Credit card spending went down. We still used them because we understood credit, so we still wanted to maintain good credit, and rebuild our credit. But credit card spending didn't stop. Other things did. We saved a lot. We got on the Dave Ramsey bandwagon. Went through his seminar two or three times with different groups of people.
It didn't stick the first time.
Well, if you still use credit cards, it didn't stick. But that's why I was asking about the credit cards, because you mentioned about giving up the car. That's like the entire Dave Ramsey show. It's the give up the car show.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about how great it would be if we didn't have credit cards, and we even went through the ceremonial act of cutting almost all the credit cards.
Almost all of them.
Yeah. But
what's hard now though is people can't avoid credit card spending.
Yeah.
People who are working at a minimum wage or higher position, or average maybe $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, have a commute. The cost of living has caused them to use credit.
And it's hard not to. Like what would always get us is you'd go to rent a car or something.
Right.
And they put a hold. If they put a hold on your debit card, it's a hold off your bank account.
Right.
If they put a hold on your credit card, it's not.
Yeah.
Same with hotels and everywhere else. And so we ended up just coming back to credit cards. And now we use credit cards regularly because we understand how to use them and how to really kind of benefit from points and other things that we take advantage.
That's pretty important for
Yeah.
people to understand is how to use them, conservatively, but effectively. And the points are great too. Cash back on Discover, what have you. But it can get out of control pretty fast.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. There's because of the interest rates, there's some cards out there right now that are giving like 6% cash back, like stupid numbers.
Yeah, it's
just to get that business.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like some of the stuff, the monthly expenses you tried to get rid of. How did you have any kind of budgeting methods?
Envelope system.
The envelope system.
We did the envelope system. I'm
I did that too.
I'm pretty good with spreadsheets. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the important thing too is like you got to stay on top of it. You can't just put your head in the sand and be like, this is awful. And it, you know, there's no
Were you
way.
actually doing cash?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you going in and negotiating lower payment? For
everything,
stuff?
everything.
Yeah, we did that too.
Anything.
So
we
I
could
didn't do that. What? Tell me about that. How did you what did
You
you
go
do?
in and like we even did it at the gas station and stuff. We'd go in and we'd say, we're paying cash, not credit. Can we get a lower rate or lower cost?
Oh, you would try to haggle the gas station.
Yeah. Because they're charging you for that payment processing.
I've never
fee.
done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like Arco, they have different price.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, for cash versus credit.
Wow, the gas station.
Gas
Yeah.
station, yeah.
So you would haggle. I love haggle everywhere. Haggle at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I love haggling. So my wife would get so embarrassed, and I'd be just go right in wherever we went, everywhere. I always say, paying cash. Can we get lower price? Restaurants everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, all they could say is no, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I probably said no a lot, huh?
No, you. Well, you're right. Yeah.
Milk?
We did get no. We did get no a lot, but then we found consistently like places we could go and ask.
Yeah.
And they would do it.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially like mom and pop shops. Like they prefer you to pay cash because they don't want to pay that processing fee.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So I bet. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Or taxes.
Or taxes. So how did the
I'm just kidding.
so how did the short
Joke,
sale?
everyone. Joke.
Just kidding.
Just
Scratch that. So how did the short sale though affect you?
Okay, this is Mike's gonna make fun of me. This is another lucky thing. So the original house was on my wife's credit, and I was the one making the income at the time because we had little kids, and so we short sold the house in her name, and then we bought the next house in my name.
Nice.
So we were only out of a purchased home for about 3 months.
Was it a 3-year thing on a short sale too at the time?
Yeah, but it
for
didn't matter.
repurchase? But it
She
wouldn't
wasn't
matter
gonna-
for you.
Yeah, it didn't matter.
But in general, it should.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. It would have for her credit was hit for 3 years.
Yeah.
Yes, but we didn't use her credit for the purchase of the next home, and so it was the luckiest scenario you could possibly have at
Pretty
that
much.
time.
Yeah.
And
People
we called
probably
the
can't
bank.
identify with you very well.
When we called the bank, we said, "Hey, look, we want to short sell." They're like, "Go for it!" Like they were so done
I know.
with. They were like, "Sure,
yeah.
we'll take whatever we can get."
Yep.
You know.
They write off the difference, or
Yep.
did yeah, they
wrote
did.
off the difference.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, they weren't.
So
they-
yeah, sorry to disappoint you.
Sounds real hard, Rick. Yeah. tough situation.
Tell me about
there,
the
buddy.
struggle,
We
buddy.
were in a
Man.
place where like I was not making very much money at the time. I was making enough to have 3.5% down on FHA loan, but we lived like we stayed in our house and ate at home. We did not go out to eat ever, and it was actually kind of a cool time because we have a lot of fond memories of just hanging out with the kids.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like COVID now. Like during COVID, dude, we had a great time as a family. We
Yeah.
did some awesome stuff and good memories. So I miss COVID. No traffic.
Yeah,
You know,
And then
like-
checks would show up in the mail every so often. It
Yeah.
was just very odd.
yeah, that was a good time. That was a good learning experience because you learn from your parents. And my in-laws they had good careers, extremely frugal, and they've lived through everything no problem. So
Yeah.
they were not like a learning lesson. They were like something to emulate. My parents they're entrepreneurs and they've had some ups and downs. So they've got a lot of good life experience that we could glean from. But now I don't know how to handle this next one. You
Yeah.
know? So
My grandparents, going through like the Great Depression and all of things like that, they did everything like frugal. It was,
I bet.
they cut the sponges in half so they'd only use half a sponge.
Wow, yeah.
put water in the
Things you
milk,
like-
stuff like
save,
that.
Save everything.
Yep.
You know, here's a great story. I went to Alaska this past summer, and I was looking at rental cars for the week, and it was going to be like, I don't know, $1,500 or something crazy like that. Someone turned me on to Turo and said, well, okay, I'll give this a shot. And so we got the car for like $600 for the week. It was great savings. The great part was I get to her house to pick up the car, and there's like 7 cars in their driveway. And she's like, it's a lockbox. You just go up and around the porch, and there's a lockbox there, and you'll see it. And here's
Is there
the
one per
code.
car?
One per car.
Oh, that's probably a good
They
idea.
had 6 cars they were renting through Turo, and they were lived by the airport. And she's like, I almost don't have to work. Wow. You've made 2 car payments for me in 1 week.
That's pretty awesome.
And I'm like, wow, I wish I lived near an airport. Because to get to Temecula, I don't think it would work that way here, but I'm thinking.
Yeah, if you were in San Diego,
man, what a great gig. I mean, think about it. I mean, $2,400 for 1 car if it rents out. And in Alaska during the summer, I'm sure they do. Yeah. And she had 6 of them. Think about that amount of money she's making just renting cars out.
So now you're getting into the idea of side income and stuff like that.
Like side hustle.
Yeah, side hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what are we going to do for this next round? I mean, I don't know how bad it's going to get, but it's going to continue. Inflation's still high. Interest rates are still high, so it's hard to get money to borrow.
Right.
Government shutdown.
Government shutdown sucks. And so we're going to, it's going to continue to contract. So
student loan payments just started back up.
Thankfully, I'm old enough to not have one of those.
Yeah. my kids are going through. My daughter is anyway.
Yeah.
So I said, go back to school, and so she did.
Oh,
so we got full deferment again.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, she's like, Dad, I don't make enough. I said, go back.
She didn't make enough to go to pay her student loan.
First time out of the house.
Okay.
Sharing an apartment.
Got it.
Her car's paid for. We've had that thing forever, but it needs work from time to time. I said, go back to school. They'll defer the payments.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh my gosh, that's right. So I'll just continue my education. And you can do that at any point in time. I mean, if I had student loans right now, I could just say I'm going to go back to school and just pick, as long as you're half-time or better, I think, minimum of half-time. I mean, those payments were over $600 a month for her.
Oh, that's pretty stiff.
That was stiff.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, one was Sallie Mae, and the other one was a private college loan fund. So, I mean, that helped her tremendously. That was the difference between her coming home or staying there and pursuing her career.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So they say $500 extra a month can change somebody's life.
Certainly.
And so a $600 payment every month
for just out of school kid, it was a big deal.
Very impactful.
So I mean, that's another thing to think about if you're carrying student loans and they won't work with you, or the payments kicked up again. There's so many online. I mean, she takes it online too.
Yeah.
It's not like she has to go anywhere. So she does it at night on the weekends, and she just removed $600 from her budget.
I like that comment, the $500, $500 a month. Because there's got to be a lot of side hustles. I like the idea of trying to find a way to make more money during these types of times, like getting a second job or a side hustle, or if you can invest, if you have the means to invest so that you can make money off of your investment, that's great. Because it's this weird, the concept of a recession is this weird vicious cycle where the consumer confidence goes down, and so then they stop spending money. But the fact of the matter is like 2/3 of the GDP is consumer spending.
Right.
And so then that when they stop spending money, then the GDP goes down and it makes a worse recession, and it's this total cycle. So and you can't control what other people are going to do. So you have to do what's right for you and your family ultimately. But I love the idea of trying to find a way, like think of it as a revenue problem instead of so much of an expense problem. Like, how can I get more revenue into me and my family? I think that side job, who knows what it is, what the right one is for people, but I like the side job idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, your comment on investing in this time, a lot of people will pull back on investing during this time because they want to hold on to their money, but the recession will be over.
Yes.
And right now is a good time with dips in stocks and other things to take advantage of that and get some things at a good price if you have the ability to do that right now. And then you're going to benefit from it when we pull out of the recession. So
right, if you can,
if you can,
yeah.
I mean, you can.
Yeah,
a lot of people are trying to pay their bills.
They are.
Yeah. And hopefully not using credit cards to do it.
No, unfortunately, I think
that's where
that's
people
the problem.
That's where people get.
That's why credit card balances have skyrocketed over the past few months.
Which they sure have.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out a way to just take care of your own. I mean, just make sure what you have, your bubble is taken care of. Try not to worry about exterior influences and things like that, but really look inward at what are we spending things on, and we don't eat out much. I mean, we love to cook at home. So, groceries are now a lot more expensive than they used to be. So, I mean, it's still cheaper than going out. I mean, especially in California, the minimum wage issue that's going on. People are paying, going to lunch at McDonald's for paying $16. You're almost paying an hourly wage for an employee, just yourself. So, think about your behaviors too. About, I know a lot of people who eat out 4, 5, 6 times a week, and to me, that's insane.
That's a huge one right there, eating out.
It's huge,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
It's so easy to do.
and costs of things are so much higher now. And then your tipping is, now commensurate with the cost of things now. It's just everything costs more. It's just easier. To your point, you cook food at home, you get to hang out with the family, see how everybody's day was, and spend a little time, and you're not out, fighting traffic and waiting in lines or spending money. So
You guys know much about what's going on with the auto strike,
No.
auto industry, where all of the auto workers are striking right now to get a higher wage. They came to a deal with some of the, I think with GM. GM finally came to a deal with the auto workers, but it's to get salary increases of up to like 40%.
wow.
So how will that type of thing impact? Like the strike itself, I think I read will have, if it goes on long enough, could have a 0.2% impact to the GDP, which is still significant.
That's very significant.
Right?
Wow.
But now 40% increase to workers, that's going to translate into cost increases to consumer, right?
Right.
Somehow, because they're not going to just take a hit.
Well, yeah, they're
for
going to
it.
pass it through.
And then they also have to increase production to, I think, to comply with that regulation, the 2035 regulation on building their electric vehicles.
Right.
And they're going to have to try to compete with Tesla to be able to do it profitably and efficiently. So, I mean, just the auto industry itself, do you feel like that could have a big enough impact to drive the recession further down the rabbit hole or help it?
I think it's one of many factors. I think it's negative. If I'm at 40%, that's crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Have they been like the last decade no increases?
right? Right.
Well, the agreement that one of them came to was 33% right now. So there was an agreement on that.
Man, I'm in the wrong industry.
I know.
Clearly.
Well, maybe
I'm
not.
gonna go start building cars.
Not if you didn't get
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
a wage increase.
That's incredible. Well, you wonder what happens. It's happening to parts companies too. All the suppliers, the whole supply chain of has probably been slowed considerably if they've been on strike this long.
Yeah.
It's just the downstream effects of those kind of things is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if there's the time period of the strike that creates less cars available, then the supply goes down, so prices would go up, and I mean, for no other reason than just that the supply.
The increase in wage is not going to get translated into more production or
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
No.
innovation.
We're not going to
within-
get anything
yeah.
for that.
No.
Those families will. They will.
Well, I mean,
I
is
don't know
this-
what the percentage of total cost that the wages are to a vehicle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't either.
So
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it increased the cost of a car by 40%, obviously that's a gigantic increase. But if it started out as 10% of the total cost of the car, then it's not nearly as much.
Yeah, you're saying if
impact.
it just decreases the margin.
Yeah, just decreases the margin some, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, it is one of the biggest industries, right? So
It is.
Yeah, it will absolutely affect us
Yeah.
for sure.
All right, that was a side tangent.
Yeah,
I kind of
just popped into your head.
popped in my head.
I mean, it is like this sort of microcosm, though, of the overall issue, because with the auto workers, a lot of them have good pensions, and more power to them for that. But it turns into the companies are paying for a whole bunch of employees that are no longer adding value to the company.
That was one of the arguments, is that they did away with the pension, I guess, some
Right.
time ago,
They did.
and they put in place like this 2-wage system. And so what they're pushing for is to try to reestablish pension.
And that's tough, though.
Yeah.
It's tough for an industry to last with the concept of pensions.
Right.
because the pensions are very expensive when over time. And I know they're putting money into it and they're investing, and so
Right.
hopefully that all evens out. Like we should hope for Social Security to just
Right.
continue to even out. Whenever I see any
What's that?
retired friends here, they're like, "Hey, just keep paying that Social Security, buddy. You still contributing?" Yep. Yeah. So I mean,
You're pretty close, right?
We'll give it away.
well.
Closer than you.
Not by
Not by much.
6 months.
Maybe by a year. Yeah, at the most.
I don't know. We'll have to see how things go. I'm shooting
It's like
for.
only slightly more gray than us. Oh my God.
You'd be so lucky. Yeah. No. It's funny, but my wife and I, we started looking at it. It's like I'm looking at my 401k through the company right now. I'm looking at some personal investments. I don't have a ton. And then I'm looking at Social Security, and you move that little slide, and like, okay, if I go to 65, what do I get? 67,
Yeah.
what do I get? And the jump's incredible. Forcing people to work later into life, obviously. But yeah, we've started to look at it.
Well, you should be looking at it.
Meaning, we have looked at it in the past, but now I'm really looking at it and like looking at, okay, what does this mean on a monthly basis? What does this mean as far as where are we going to live in retirement as well?
And because you're close with your kids, so where are your
Right.
kids going to be?
Right.
And how are you going to have the means to be able to see your kids? Are you going to try and live next to them? That's what I think about a lot.
Yeah.
Because I hope my kids end up in the same place, but I don't know. I don't know if they will.
I don't know.
My sister lives in Texas. Like my dad has to be able. My parents, they have to travel out to see her.
Yeah.
Or her come here.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's expensive.
It's not what you envision either. You want to be somewhat close enough
Yeah.
to, if the grandkids are and so forth. So, yeah, I've got one, a 7-hour drive away, and the other one is, still close by, but finishing up school, and who knows where the heck he's going to go.
Yeah. So traveling to be with your family could get expensive in retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good news is you'll have a lot more time. So you could take
Yes.
you could take a train.
Yeah.
Horse
and buggy.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's
just cramming it in over a weekend. So.
That is a good budget-friendly form of transportation.
You know what? And I've taken the train in my youth when I was going places, and I had a great time on the trains.
Oh man, I wish there was a train on the 15 freeway.
Oh,
on
no
our freeway,
kidding.
it would be so good.
Yeah. No,
It's not gonna
it's not going to happen.
No way.
They'll just keep widening it.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think? Just going back to side hustle, what do you feel like maybe the top 3 side hustle gigs that you would?
Uber, Lyft,
at?
Instacart. My daughter she's like, yeah, I just went out and did some Instacarting for the last 2 hours. Made $60.
Do you feel like COVID really was a catalyst for some of those online?
It was a definite springboard
hustles?
for sure.
Yeah.
People
And
staying
remote
home.
work.
Remote work.
Oh yeah. People are trying to do Amazon drop shipping. They're trying to, become affiliate marketers.
Yeah.
And I think that all those things are awesome. Everybody who is trying to figure out a side hustle should, and the information to be able to do that stuff is out there. You should, and it's free. I don't think you don't have to pay a guru to figure it out. Like do your own research and figure it out. But I think that Uber Lyft is a great thing to start.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yep.
Uber, Lyft,
And easy.
DoorDash.
Those are
whatever
easy to
else.
start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Well, so what are some of the things that are maybe a little farther down the road? Virtual assistant, transcribing. Is transcribing
Medical
still a thing?
billing.
People still do that? I think they do.
Are you sure?
Showing your age a little bit?
Yeah.
I know medical billing's still there.
Yeah, medical billing. For sure.
and they make really pretty good money actually.
What do you do as a person working from home as a medical biller?
You handle all the invoicing and chasing down claims and
So you're kind of like the collections department. Okay.
Yeah, you're doing the books and chasing people down and making phone calls.
It's just like somebody who does it in house.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just perform that function.
That's a great point, though. I mean, virtual assistant, that's big right now. That's really big. I mean, people just, being answering the phone from home. You can tell when you call certain companies, they're home.
Oh, yeah.
These people are at home answering that phone.
And in a lot of cases, they're college educated people who need flexible hours.
Yeah.
And they're like very good. And so like, I think that's a really good idea.
And that's easy to find. You go Google that and you'll find a lot of places offering that. Mm-hmm. And it may not be the income you're looking for, but think about the cost you're giving up. I'm not commuting, time on the freeway, time away from home, gas, maintenance on the car. There's some intangibles there. Well, I guess some more tangibles that, you have to factor in when you're taking on, some job like that.
Do you ever find it weird when the dog's barking in the background and they're asking you for your social security number, your credit card number?
Yeah. I go ahead and say no thanks.
Not since COVID. Before COVID, absolutely. That would have been very strange.
Oh, I know, man.
Yeah. People are always apologizing, like hearing their kids and stuff. I'm so sorry. I'm like, hey, it's just kind of the times. Like, it's okay,
Yeah.
As long as
it reminds me of one of the people we used to work with who she would work from home well before COVID, and she would say goodbye to her kids, walk out the front door, sneak around the back, and go into her office.
That's hysterical.
Because the kids would freak out. They didn't want her to leave, so she had to be like this official process. But you were talking about the different jobs. There are like platforms, kind of like a ZipRecruiter or LinkedIn or whatever, that are dedicated to people who need flexible hours and work from home. So there's the whole marketplaces out there. There's all sorts of things. So I think like there's the ones that we see because we see the advertisements for them, but there's all sorts of flexible work out there that could fit different skill sets. So I think it's definitely worth the research.
The other thing you can do too is you could just move to another state where the cost of living's better and just tell your employer that you're going to be doing so, and all of a sudden maybe your earnings are different because you're coming from a state with higher earnings.
This is called foreshadowing.
But there are there's a lot to think about.
Where in the world is Darren Rodda?
Somewhere that doesn't have California state income tax.
That's right. But that's something to think about too. I mean, we talked about getting close to retirement as you are. That look at the states that offer the best retirement living. Especially if you're military too. I mean, there's very good states to retire in that will not tax any of your retirement income. And actually, if you're military, even have other benefits associated with it. So, that's a big factor too when you're looking towards how am I going to survive today and the future is, okay, maybe, relocation is not a bad idea. Taking some of the assets you have today and converting them into a more sustainable and longer term situation for yourself and your family.
Yeah.
One of the things like this is that I would want to make sure and get out for this type of thing is the most important thing is to start looking at one's finances, because if something can't be measured, it can't be improved. And so just the act of being on top of your finances and knowing exactly where your money is going in and out is the first step to making improvements. And so whether you do it on a piece of paper because it's comfortable for you, or you make a spreadsheet, or you use some budgeting platform like creditanddebt.org, whatever the case may be, I think that just the act of looking and starting to really pay attention, and you mentioned it earlier, don't put your head in the sand. Like you got to face the hard truth that you need to find a way to spend less money and hopefully find a way to make a little bit more. But you can't do that until you start looking. You just gotta face it, and that it's hard. It's really hard.
It is hard.
But I think that is like by far the most important thing, because I know so many people who just they don't even know.
And there have been times when I'd be spending money and she'd be spending money, and we both would just not want to call each other on it, because that would cause me to have to stop spending money too.
Right.
And I kind of was enjoying spending money, so I didn't call her on her spending money. And next thing you know, we're both spending way too much money, and that's not the right way to do it.
Do you remember going through, like, before all of the online shopping and everything, when you were still using a checkbook and writing down every expense in your checkbook, and we knew down to the penny.
Because you know how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
That's such a foreign concept anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife
many
leveraged. She would always
exactly. There's too many transactions.
But you can download a CSV of your.
Yeah.
You could, but it makes it too easy then.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, coming home and seeing all those boxes at the front door all the time, it's like, what are we doing?
I think sometimes the hard things are better.
Yes.
Having to do the hard.
Yeah,
things
balancing
are
a
better.
checkbook is
Yeah.
a very good
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah. So, as we kind of wrap up, what do you guys? What do you think maybe the top 3 things are that you'd give advice to somebody that's facing the recession? We don't want people to freak out. There's no, people shouldn't freak out with the word recession. But really what it comes down to are what? What are the kind of the top 3 things?
I think what the last topic that Rick mentioned is just face it. Look at it, decide what's important. Where can we cut? You might be surprised as to you could cut here and there and end up with $500 extra a month. Very easily. But I think that's one of the biggest takeaways is just you got to face it. You got to look at it. Pull that CSV file.
Yeah.
Sort it. See where your money's going each month. And if you can affect that.
And then start looking more often.
Right.
More weekly.
So what if you don't know anything about finances? You know nothing about, like, you haven't been taught much.
Then I would say try to have one bank account and maybe one credit card if you think you can manage it. But restrict yourself so that you don't have so many options to spend. And it's easier to keep track of. And when I say keep track, it's just like, you could just know how much money you have in your bank. Like that, maybe that's the first place to start.
Would you guys recommend maybe milestones, keeping an emergency fund and not dipping into that unless it's 100% an emergency? Like, what would you think is the right amount of money for someone to keep in the bank?
If possible, at least 3 months worth of cost of living.
Yep.
If possible. I think that's really tough. I think the first thing to do when times are really hard is to get $1,000, right?
Yep.
And maybe that number is not enough now because of inflation over the past few years, but have $1,000 in some level of emergency fund, just because $1,000 can cover a fair amount of emergencies, and then hopefully you can gradually get to the concept of having maybe 2-3 months of cost of living.
Yep.
But yeah, like you need something to where if your car breaks down and you can't get to work, you got to be able to pay to get your car going again. Yep. I think that's probably the best example is because if your car breaks down and you can't pay for it and you can't get to work, things are only going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
Yeah, because then that's when you pull the credit card out, and then that's when you end up spending more than you have, and you get into even more problems and trouble.
Yeah. I know that credit unions in general seem to have better lending practices than non-credit unions. We've just had a lot of luck, even in hard times with our credit union, where we need to skip a car payment this month to get us back on track. They would do it. And other banks. I just know that credit unions have been a little bit more favorable when it comes to helping you out as a member than the other institutions have. And just if I could skip both of my car payments, one this month, maybe the other car next month, now all of a sudden I'm sitting on $600 more than I had before, and there's no impact to me or my credit.
I think that's a great point that not a lot of people know you can do. You can call your creditor and you can defer. You can defer a payment. A lot of them will allow you to do this, and they just end up moving it to the end. It's not the best thing, but if it's between you and groceries, or that and paying that in groceries, or not paying that and impacting your credit long term, then call your creditor.
Absolutely.
That is one thing that I think has changed for the better since COVID. Is a lot of the creditors have they all have like specific programs for that. Yeah. So yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, you got to think of your life kind of as a business. I'm running my life as a business. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to manage the vendors that I'm working with in a certain way. And so I'm going to give them a call. I'm going to work this out, and you can't be afraid of them. I think that's the big thing is people are always afraid of the creditors, like they're the bad guy, and they may become the bad guy when they're coming after you. But if you're trying to legitimately work with them and call them and say, listen, this is the deal. I'm going to need to defer a payment. Then they will work with you.
I think people would be surprised
how
much they would work with you. And for some, that extra, skipping a car payment, that's a big deal.
Yep.
I mean, and think about the physical and emotional and the stress that it's placed on you during these times too. If you can make a phone call and get a car payment deferred, you get to breathe again for another week or two, which is good because that affects your life, your work, everything else when you're just constantly stressed out about money.
Yep.